Hi. Sorry if this video is a little late. I've been changing my mind a couple times on what I want to make, but I figured it out. This is going to be dope. That is a 9.5 inch long long-eared sunfish, which up until a couple minutes ago I thought was the world record length of a long-eared sunfish. But it's not, because Wikipedia lies. And I've already cut out a 9.5 inch piece of wood to make this long-eared sunfish out of, and I don't want to waste this wood. So this is going to be a 9.5 inch long long-eared sunfish. Why is this important? I'm going to do a new kind of video, I guess, that is like replica quality, or at least my attempt at replica quality detailed world record size fish that are swim baits. Like replica swim baits. Swim baits that are kind of like replica mounts. How do you say this? This isn't sounding very dope. Miss Patricia Stout caught that long-eared sunfish at Elephant Butt Lake. This thing was 10.5 inches long. It weighed 1 pound and 12 ounces. Jeez. Caught it on a worm. 4-pound test with a Zebco. That was the world record. So I'm gonna make that. It's gonna be a swim bait. Probably a 3-piece. Yeah, probably a 3-piece. Before we get into fun facts, I kind of wanted to explain why I'm making such a big, impractical, detailed, crazy lure. For a long time now, I've wanted to get into replica kind of detail quality stuff. For now, I kind of want to see if I can put that detail into a swim bait. See if I'm even capable of making that kind of detail, you know? It's definitely going to be a challenge. My normal kind of lure carving is just that. It's not super anatomically correct, but if I can get that on these baits, I'll be happy with myself. Okay. Fun, potentially true facts from Wikipedia. Long-eared sunfish, native to eastern North America. They reach a length of 9.5 inches. We've determined that's baloney, with a maximum recorded weight of 1.7 pounds. I don't know if that equals 1 pound 12 ounces. It might, probably. They live to 6 years. They have an exceptionally long, elongated ear flap. They have a long ear flap. So they like dense vegetation. The streams that they live in, they prefer slow current. So they will eat other little minnows, insects, invertebrates. Oh. More than any other species of sunfish, they feed near the surface of the water. I mean, to sum all this up, it's just a really pretty sunfish. Fun facts are over. Now I'm gonna cut the fins down to the maximum thickness that they're gonna be when this bait's finished. I kind of cut a channel in all of the high points on the fins, and that lines the blade up to where I can cut the tail and the top and the front of the top fin and everything all at the same time. While getting this fin blocked out, I just realized something. I cut this bait out to be 9.5 inches long, but after I cut the joints, it's gonna probably be right around 10.5 inches long, which is the world record size. I didn't do it on purpose, but always works out in the end, you know? Just trying to get an idea of what the top profile shape is going to be. Before I cut that out, I need to cut the joints on this bait, so just to get a better idea of where the joints should be, I wanted to do this. Okay, I changed my mind again. This is going to be a single joint glider, not a 3-piece. I think it's kind of more fitting, more of a sophisticated gliding action for a sophisticated bait, you know? There's one side. On this side, I kind of cut off of the line a little bit, and the cut's tilted compared to the line, and so I'm trying to match it on this side, so when I cut these joints completely, the cut will meet and the pieces will break off nicely. Okay, I think that'll do. Okay, that's all it needed. Not gonna cut all the way through that because I'm gonna get this bait cut out this way and then carved most of the way before I finish cutting that joint. Screwed up a little bit right there, cut into the piece where I didn't want to, but I'll be able to fill that in. But there's the profile, the really rough profile and shape of this bait. Okay, I've got the, I think I've got some pretty good shape to this bait now. It's time to start rounding off all of these sharp edges. I'm not going to be very precise or strict with these chamfer lines with this bait. I'm going for realistic, so I think I'm just going to have to carve it how I feel it should be carved as I go, but these are just really rough benchmarks on where I should be, I think. I just gotta accept that this is gonna take a long time and take my time and just try to look at a picture and carve it how it should be. On parts where I know a bunch of detail are going to be, like in the head and the eye and the gills and stuff, I tend to just leave a bunch of wood there and not carve it all away, because usually I need more than I think. So after looking at pictures of long-eared sunfish, I've kind of determined the shape I want for this body, and it's going to be kind of a teardrop shape where it's thinner up here. The head still has quite a bit of shape and thickness, but up here it's a little thinner and along the back. But the belly, I want to have a big belly on this bait. I think panfish, they look kind of cool when, I don't know, it'd just be more interesting. I think a more interesting looking fish if it had a bigger belly. Sounds kind of weird. You know, it's always good to see healthy sunfish. A healthy fish in general. Nice and fat. Okay, I'm gonna get back to work. So, after a whole bunch of sanding and a whole bunch of carving, this is where I'm at. And this is going to be the general shape of the bait. And I'm pretty happy with it. That looks good. A lot of material left on it, so I can, just in case I need it for all the carvings. But I drew out the spines on the fins, or just on that fin, the top fin. That's actually the high points. So I'm going to try to leave the pin marks and then carve kind of like concave everywhere else. I think that'll imitate a fin really well. That took an entire day just to do those fins. Now I'm going to move on to the gills, the scales. This thing's also going to need the two fins that come off the bottom and then the side fins too. There's a lot of work left to do. I'm having a good time though. This is pretty chill. Just sit for hours and carve on wood. I'm cool with it. I have got some features carved into this long-eared sunfish, and the last of the fins that I have to do are these. That's gonna be those two fins on each side, the bottom ones right here. So these are gonna be made out of poplar too. I'm gonna cut these out on the bandsaw, make a slot in the bait for where they go, and glue them in. These will be kind of like a fragile piece sticking off the sides, but since this is a replica bait, I was thinking that's kind of okay, it's appropriate. I'm going for realistic, so I don't really need to design durability into it, you know? I'm just trying to get a taper on this fin to where it's thicker up here where it inserts into the bait, then it tapers down to the end. Right there is where I'm going to be putting a slot to fit one of these fins in, like that. I think what I'm going to do first is go in with a burr bit on my Dremel and kind of gouge out as much as I can, and then just square off the edges with my knife. I think that's the best way to do that. That looks really good. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but that looks pretty good. So I've drawn and erased and drawn again these lines like 5 times, but I think I got something I'm happy with. I'm going for realism in these scales, of course, and I thought by just doing it by hand I'd be able to get kind of realistic shape, smaller scales up here and back here and bigger in the middle. And I don't know, I wasn't really feeling comfortable with that, so I've decided to use a straight edge, and I can still make the scale smaller and larger based on how thick I make these lines. And then when they're all hashed out, I can go back and carve out each individual scale and give it curve on the back side and make it look realistic. But yeah, this is like a multiple step process and I'm trying to be consistent so these look good. It's also important to get the angle right. There's this angle, and then there's you're just making a whole bunch of X's, and the angle of each X is really important because you even want the scales to curve with the body so it looks realistic. What you're going for is a curve that follows the top profile of the bait. That only took like half an hour, which is good. That's not very much time considering the other stuff I was doing and how long it took. Okay, there's got to be a way to measure this. It's like a 50-degree angle. Yeah, that's like 50 degrees. So I gotta go 50 degrees back this way and kind of stick around that angle. It'll change slightly as I go down the bait because I want the scales to curve, but I'm gonna start with 50 degrees over here. And this is some serious eyeballing. This is not perfect, but I think, you know, some good eyeballing we'll have to do. Okay, this is gonna look good. I'm gonna draw the rest of this and get back to you guys later. Yeah, I got a lot to do. So it goes from small to big to small again on the back, and it looks pretty natural. I think once I get these carved out, I'm gonna be pretty happy with that. I'm gonna kind of stay away from the belly. On the real ones, there's not much going on. It's really smooth on these fish's bellies, so once I get the paint on, that won't look so dramatic from nothing there to scales. These scales aren't going to be very deeply carved either. It seems that on long-eared sunfish, they definitely don't have a very distinct scale pattern. The colors on these fish way over over, the colors just pop way more than the scales do, is what I'm trying to say. Now I'm going in with some ink and drawing the curvature of the scale on the back side. When I get to cutting these, I think what I'm going to do is just come in and cut this ink line, but I'm not going to be worried about making it meet with the scale in front of it. I'm just going to cut this and then cut off the other side. And that way, I'm thinking that's going to give these scales a much more subtle look. I'm kind of concerned about that with this bait. I don't want these scales to be too, like, bold, you know? I want them to be subtle. So, I did something I kind of regret. Something kind of stupid. I got the wood burner out, the wood burning engraving tool, and I've had this for like 3 years, long time. I've never gotten good with it. I don't like it. But for some reason, I got it out and I started using it on this bait. And I regret that now. It's, one sec. It just never looks good. I was thinking, like, you know, you gotta practice with something to get good with it. So I was being like persistent and okay. If you want to get good with something, you might as well do it on something you're like needing it to be good on, was my thought process. But that was dumb because I kind of made it look bad right here. But really, it's not too bad. I can go back with the knife and fix up all of the ugliness right there. Right here on these fish too, it's the scales get really small. It never really looks super clean right here on the real fish either, so I'll be able to make this look okay, I think. Yeah, I don't promote the use of wood burning tools, wood burning engraving tools. I don't know what you even call them. Maybe some of you out there are really good with them, but I'm not. Yep, one scale at a time with a sharp knife and just being patient, I think, is the only way to go if you want good looking scales. So hopefully these look good so I can seem like I know what I'm talking about. It is done. Well, the scales are done. That took a long time, 4 days? Yeah. I've been working off and on these scales for 4 days and they're done. Now I can move on. So, a couple more things about this bait. I cut this fin off, as you can see. That's the cut off piece. And I was thinking that it's too thick because I'm gonna want both of these fins and this one to be made out of a flexible rubber and be the same material and color on the bottom of this bait. I think it's gonna look best that way. So I needed to cut it off anyway, and I made it thinner. This is the new one. I have a little bit of cleaning up to do on it. But yeah, and the time it took to get all these scales carved, I figured out exactly what I want to do for this bait because I had quite a bit of time to think about it. And I'm gonna put door hinge joints on this bait, like the integrated resin hinge joints in it. They're gonna be made out of resin. I'm gonna mold these. There's gonna be another joint. This is gonna be a 3-piece. What else? I think that's it for now. I might be forgetting something, but I'll just say it later. Yeah, that worked out good. There's just a little bit of material left up there that I broke, but it meets up nicely. Worked out good. So that is the size of this. And this is gonna get inserted into there when I'm done boring it out. And that's what's gonna hold the bait together once I put a pin through all that. For this end, I'm gonna put the same kind of pieces like this, but 2 of them on this side. And that'll be the hinge for this joint. It is pretty important to make sure that these are straight, because these faces, the faces of these cylinders are what's going to make sure your joint's straight too. I sanded that edge down just a little bit to get a better fit because this fin's in the way back here. That'll be good. So I drew out a line on that joint's hinges right there, and it's the same shape as this side of the tailpiece, and it's what's gonna match up right there. So I'm carving everything down to that line and kind of trying to make it gradual and the same shape as the body. This is a pretty important step. If it doesn't look like it belongs, like if there's just a big bump here on both the hinges, it's pretty ugly, you know? And it is kind of difficult to get between this fin and this joint piece right here, because it needs to taper down, but I can't really see what I'm doing. I'll manage, don't worry about me guys, it's fine. I'll get this done. So I'm doing finishing touches, microfile and sanding stuff to get the carvings on this bait up to snuff, and then I'm gonna seal the wood. But yeah, it's all good to go. That back joint looks good, front joint looks great. Got to drill out the pilot holes where the hardware is going to be, smooth everything out, and ready to seal the wood. It's been like 2.5 weeks to get to this point. This video is going to be late, very late. That's okay though. Keep chugging along. So before I seal the wood, I thought I should get a shot of it all put together when it's just made out of wood. And it looks good. These are the removable fins, the 2 bottom ones. That's the how far it'll bend to the sides. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. So I'm expecting this first coat to get completely soaked up by the wood. It's not going to really add a layer of like thin plastic to the bait, This polyurethane isn't. It's just going to stabilize the wood, and then if I go any further with it, I'm going to spray it on, and that's going to add a thin layer of plastic and kind of hide imperfections and make everything look smoother. So this doesn't need to be pretty right now yet.
Hit it.
Okay.
You hit the mold.
We're gonna chill out in here for like 10 minutes, make sure that doesn't leak, and I think we're good. Cut!
Camera woman doesn't want to cut yet.
Right there. It's leaking.
Oh.
Lure making emergency. Oh, we got a big one over here. Alright, flip this. There's another one.
3 leaks. Oh. What do you have to say for yourself? That one's still leaking?
No. I don't know, usually that works good.
I thought you've never done this method.
Well, like usually using the clay as like a gasket works. Not today. What the heck? This is awful. Not bad. Here's the front piece. This is a tail piece. It's stuck. Okay, got it. This one's being difficult. All right, I've got these molds all set up. I cut out the silicone where it needed to be cut out so I could pour the resin into the molds. And now I'm gonna do that. I'm adding microspheres to the resin. That way it floats. Gotta be quick. This is a lot of resin and it'll set up fast in this container. This is the quick set resin from Alumilite. So that is going to be the only lead hole on this bait, and it's a big one. That's going to hold a lot of lead. But for the action I'm going for, on this bait, I want it to, all of the weight to be up in the front, and I don't want any mass in the back that would keep it from swimming. Like the whole, an object at rest wants to stay at rest and an object in motion wants to stay in motion. If I put more weight in the back, it's going to want to stay at rest. So I want the head to not move, so I'm putting all the weight in the head, and then I want the other two segments to move, so there's not going to be any weight in those two. That will make this bait kind of sink nose first, but I don't intend to use it as a suspending slow action kind of bait. It's going to swim.
It's going to be kind of hard to fit under there. Well, it looks like I can do it. I just can't fill it up too much. That'll do.
So that's super glue, that's baking soda. I'm going to cover that with some super thin super glue. That, got a bunch of glue in my nose. That dries instantly and puts off some pretty harsh vapors and fumes. And if it gets in your nostril, it hurts. But I did that so it'll dry instantly and I don't have to wait for epoxy to cure. So I sanded that lead hole down. I added the baits hardware. I've gotten this thing all ready for painting, and I painted it a little bit already. Here's what it looks like. I've got the white base on it with a little bit of blue, and that'll be the base coat for this bait. What I have to do now, it's a pretty complicated paint scheme, this long-eared sunfish, and I've done this technique in the past where I use some masking fluid, and all of the blue dots on this fish's body is where that masking fluid's gonna go. And then I can paint the rest of the colors around it and then take off the masking fluid, and you're left with something really pretty if it all goes right. But I plan on, before applying that masking fluid, I want to put a little bit of a clear coat over the paint to protect it, so when I peel off the masking fluid, no paint gets peeled off with it. So I'm gonna go to the craft store, get some stuff. This stuff's old, probably like 5 years old. I haven't used it in forever, so I need some new of that, and some sort of like acrylic clear spray should do. Fast drying. I want to get this done today. I'm back. Price went up on masking fluid. Get this tiny little bottle for 16 bucks. And I decided against getting some acrylic sealer or clear coat. I got some more potent stuff. Comes in a smaller can, but it's got acetate and xylene and all the good stuff that makes for a good clear coat. And I think, and it dries faster too, 15 minutes to the touch. Or no, dries in 15 minutes, still tacky in 15 minutes. You can handle it in an hour. So I'm thinking I'll wait a couple hours after applying this and then I'll start masking. I'm gonna get to it. So I'm at the point where I'm putting the masking fluid on the scales, and I'm trying to do it with a little bit of strategy, a little bit of a pattern. On these fish, they have lines, it seems, of the blue dots that go across them this way. You can kind of pick that up, you know, when you look at it and kind of squint your eyes. So I want to make sure I capture that or imitate that. It's hard to tell if you're doing a good job with this masking fluid because you apply it and it's that tan color, and then like a minute later it goes clear. So it's hard to see what you've already painted and everything, or it's hard to see what you've already masked over, but I think I'm getting it. This is definitely a complex paint job. And I gotta make it look similar on the other side, which is my biggest concern right now with not being able to see very well what I did. I just kind of have to go off memory and make it look good. Even if it's not exactly the same, this is gonna look really good, I think. It's gonna look amazing.
Look at 2001 Space Odyssey. That's the kind of thing you start if you talk to scientists. That's what start making those kinds of money. By the banks of the river, where the willows hang down. Go on, birthday, whoa, willow goes down. Way down in the hole, where the river is going. It's our first lesson. Till I see you go. Now on my back, now I see you sing. With wings for blackbirds, give me. I fill up my shotgun with a top nail.
Taking off this masking fluid's kind of taking just as long as it took to put it on, but that makes sense. If you be careful and you go one little splotch at a time, it's a time-consuming process. Looks cool though. This is looking great. When I'm done peeling off all of this masking fluid, I think I'm gonna go back with some pearlized colors and kind of fill the belly back in and maybe use some scale material, some mesh, and give the imitation of some scales on the belly. Pearlized silver maybe on the gills and in the middle. Probably pearlized silver along the lateral line of this bait. Okay, this is the home stretch right here. Just got to finish painting the eyes, glue them on, clear coat. Yeah, the home stretch involves a few steps, but almost done. This is the little lighter colored iris around the pupil that I'm painting on right now. You can kind of see it there. The eye is mostly going to be red, but it's going to have that little white iris. It's not actually white, it's a pretty dark silver. I think if I just did white, that'd be way too bold. I'd say this bait deserves a signature. Sometimes it's extremely awkward to put a signature on a lure, especially a lure like this with all the fins sticking off the bottom. Huh. One of the ugliest signatures I've ever made. But there it is anyway. Time to clear coat. So I'm going to do the clear coats for this bait in two applications. The first one's going to be the two rear pieces that are light, and then the second application is just going to be the front piece, and that's the heaviest piece, and I'm going to counterbalance it on my rotisserie up here. So there are going to be parts of this bait that I'm not going to want to get clear coat on, like the slots for the fins and like deep into the joints. It's just not going to have clear coat because it doesn't need it. The material that the bait's made out of is not going to get filled with water like wood would. Kind of a complicated application of brush on clear coat, but we'll manage. This is a 30-minute epoxy, but it has like a 7-minute window where it's like able to be brushed onto the bait and it's not too thick. Really, that's quite a bit of time. I don't have to rush this right now. Comes a point where you just got to stop fiddling with it and put it on the rotisserie and get onto the other piece, because you can manipulate it with the torch and like thin the clear coat up with the torch, even if it's set up a little bit on the rotisserie, and move it around more afterwards. But you don't want to wait too long to get to the other piece, because then you can't even apply it onto the bait if the epoxy's too thick. So I'll get the big piece clear coated and get back to you guys. This was quite the project. Right now, I think I'm 3 weeks out from my last video. So usually it takes me about a week to make a lure, but this one took 3. But it's quite the lure. It's worth it. It's an awesome bait. And since I have a mold of it, I can make more. But yeah, tomorrow, and put this thing together and fish with it. Wow. So I casted some rubber fins for it, and those will be replaceable. Just got to put the hooks on and go see how it swims. But my goodness, look at that. I don't think it's replica quality. It's not quite as detailed as what a replica bait would be, or a replica mount would be, but it's as detailed as I can get, for sure. The fins on this one came out a little messed up, but that's okay. They're replaceable. I can mold some cleaner ones. I'm just trying to get out there today and test this thing with some fins on it, so I took them out a little early. Okay, let's go test this. Oh, it's heavy.
Oh. Yep.
So the long-eared sunfish, it worked pretty good. It had a little bit too much of an erratic action for my liking, but it had an action. And if I make any more for the future, I know exactly what I'm going to do for it. Probably put more lead in it, and I might make 2 lead holes. But just more lead in that bait will help it be more stable for sure. I think what I'm going to do with that bait is put it on display. I'm not going to fish with it. It's too pretty. It is pretty pretty. It is really pretty.
Just like you, honey.
On to the next bait. You want to say it, Chelsea? Go ahead, Chelsea. Give him one.